FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Buzianas, no call! Score!
Salamini for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Blasts. Yes! That's it!
Miljevic.
Beautiful ball! Here's Bozanic. They might have won it!
The Pioneers with George Donikian and George Kotsanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.
My favourite time of the week whenever we have the Pioneers, and there's a terrific opportunity to say hello again to George Kotsanis, or G2 as I know him.
Welcome back,
because
G1.
he suspended me for 3 or 4 weeks there and wouldn't let me come onto the program.
I've always said, as long as you behave, you're quite welcome on the program, but it's up to you.
You mentioned behaviour, and straight away we're going to be joined in just a moment by a guy from the western suburbs.
Another Westie.
Yeah, who not only won titles as a player, then as a player coach,
Yep.
then as a coach,
Yep.
but he's done something more than that.
More
He's
than
devoted 25 years to coaching school kids.
Yep.
Yep. He boasts 9 senior championships with Penley and Essendon Grammar.
It's a pretty good record.
Yep. His name's not Gary Cooper.
It's not.
No.
You mixed it up, did you? Did you get that
I
wrong, did you?
Absolutely. I thought he was one of these, larrigans and legends.
Okay.
I looked it up in the
Funky
IMBD. Yeah. In the Hollywood Guide, when you said to me, Coops is coming, I thought, oh, it must be Gary Cooper. No, it's Colin Cooper.
It is Colin.
And a little earlier in the program, I spoke to Paul Trimboli, and these two guys had so much fun as youngsters, and they scored so many goals together, it was hard to separate them.
I can imagine that.
Is
Having seen both of them play.
Is it time for us to welcome him yet?
It is. Colin Cooper, welcome to the Pioneers.
Hello, Kotzi. Hello, George.
Mate, thrilled to have you here. I know you, of course, because we had to tell the Moreland story, the Moreland City story. It's a century-old story, and you were a big part of that, especially the latter stages of the what would you call it? The rebirth of the club. It had gone through 3 or 4 different iterations. It started as Coburg way back in 1916, and finally during the 70s and 80s, you found your way there and you made a contribution. And Wardy to this day just reckons that I should have given him some extra time that particular interview segment.
He does, doesn't he?
Because he was nonplussed. He wanted his moment, and I said to him, Wardy, I'll tell you what, Coops is coming. I need some intel. You know what? I've got 44 pages of notes. Thanks to Wardy.
That'd be right.
That's the sort of guy he is.
The problem is they're in Cockney, and therefore you need them subtitled, and we can't go with most of those stories. He reads and writes in a totally different language.
He does. But what a player he has been. What a teammate he was for you.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you, he loves you.
Yeah, well, Danny Ward is just one of the special people in football.
And has been for a long, long time.
We ended up sort of getting together when he was about 30, I was about 20, and he outlasted me.
He outlasted everybody.
He outlasted everybody.
I reckon he could play the Legends tournament and do it for the next 10 years.
I know Danny played league reserves up until about age 56, and I don't think
that's
gave it
rare
up.
hair.
He was dropped because if it was up to him, he'd be still playing.
Yeah,
and if you ask him, he's still probably the best option.
I will tell you, I remember being behind the goals as an Altona City junior. You'd always go and have a kick behind the goals, and Melbourne Hungary were playing, and watching him in full flight and jump for the ball in the corner with his long locks, he was superhuman. He was an incredible athlete, Danny, and even when we got to North Geelong, I still remember a lot of the Croatian boys that have a big banner up with Danny on the cross, because he on some TV shows he resembles Jesus the way he is up in the cross, and they used to move behind the goals and go to the other goals the second half. So he was a real hero.
I tell you what, he has been and was something to behold when he was playing at the height of his powers.
He was.
Yeah, and we've seen it up close, and we'll get him on the show eventually when he finally agrees, and he can give us a whole hour of that. But now we've got our special guest, and I want to take you way back, and I want to know about if you remember, that very first football memory, your fever pitch moment as it was.
Yeah, well, excuse me. Mine, I thought about this, Cotsy, and really the one thing I can remember is my granddad, who was an Irishman, come out in a boat from Belfast, because a lot of people wondered why a little Aussie would play football.
I thought that when you signed for Altona. That's not all I thought, but...
And we will call it football, not
Yep.
soccer. And so my granddad drove me up Millers Road and took me to Kim Reserve, Altona City, and out of the car. He used to support the seniors there, and I was 7 years old, and I just remember up until that stage I wasn't exposed to it at all. It was just foreign to me, and I fell in love not only with football but all sports, and it sort of become a love affair that, as you know.
You never lose it, do you?
That's right, and the funny thing is about Altona City, it's the sea air and just, I don't know, the memories, smell is part of it as well. And it wasn't long before Nat Little one day was just helping out training, and he would have been just about at the peak of his powers, and we're all running around trying to catch him, and he's nutmegging every second kid, and that's probably my first memory.
Which is probably how he played his senior footy as well.
He did. He was another
everybody.
legend.
Yeah, he would have nutmegged everyone. There's probably no one in that era that didn't get nutmegged by Nat. So he had a big influence on you, obviously at that early age, and that's part of your first football memory. But you said you liked all sports, and I know that we've had this discussion many times about our love of footy and cricket and
I was going to
whatever.
say, if you played football and you had any ball skills, you would have played cricket for sure.
Yeah, no, we'd all have. But what separated, or what gave that what gave soccer that edge? Why did you fall in love with soccer and not fall in love with the others as such?
Well, I did fall in love with AFL football. To this day, I love it. I think it's a magnificent game. I think, to be honest, I started playing soccer, and a couple of years in, I just started getting good at it. And I think if you're good at something, you love it. And I was fortunate enough to I guess score goals and find intrinsic enjoyment in it. And well,
You go with it.
you just go with it.
Feel good.
Yeah.
That conversion factor, very different.
Absolutely.
Very different, especially if you're playing up front. When you're playing at the back, stopping them is the thrill. the
Easy
absolute
job, isn't
thrill.
it?
I've always thought it was a natural skill. It was something that came very easy to me. To others, not so much. I think it's if you don't second guess yourself, and I would say it applies in any position. The biggest challenge in any contest is to be instinctive and not to overthink it or underthink it. And as a goalkeeper, there's only one way to play: totally instinct.
Absolutely.
And your first guess is your right guess. And if you think it again, you're in trouble. You watch these keepers today who flap at corners, and I can see technically they just haven't got it. And the other thing is that you've got to have a bit of this.
Oh,
You've got to
yes.
be fearless.
You've got to be a little bit nutty too, George.
Well, goalkeepers, everyone says they're nutty. I've
For good
always been-
reason, George. For good reason.
You love throwing this line at me. We had Jack Riley sitting there a couple of weeks back.
We've had
or
a few
weeks
keepers
ago.
in it.
Yeah, we've had a few. Peter Blasby.
Yeah, nutter.
Others.
Nothing.
Yeah, but
Absolute
made
nutter.
a member of the team.
Everyone
of the
who
century.
knows him and loves him will tell you he's a nutter, including Peter himself. So I'm not speaking.
I just think he's a Tottenham man. That's why you're angry.
Let's get back to talking about
all
the
right.
strikers.
Although,
We're talking
George,
about
all the
keepers.
good keepers are nutters. You must have been a great keeper.
I was super keeper. Super keeper. Injury cost me big time. But look, it was a wonderful time. Getting back to you scoring goals, I spoke to Tremors, and you guys scored a heap of goals. You must have just loved fitting in, playing alongside guys who thought like you. You're on the same wavelength.
Well, I did hear what Trimmers had to say, and Trimmers is just a true professional and
He is.
one of the best people I've ever met. And he was really kind to me. I did score a few goals, but I can guarantee you that Trimmers scored a whole lot more than me. He
Okay.
was a genuine superstar.
Fine.
held,
but
in,
you-
held in high esteem by his peers, as we know.
You guys
That's right.
played in the World Cup together. Think about that.
Yes,
the
we did.
inaugural under-16s World Cup. Think about that. That's
Yeah, and
spectacular.
we'd have some footage if someone in this room hadn't have lost the video.
Who lost the video?
Yeah, I did have a.
Did Wardy take it?
He might have. He would have taped over it.
Now let's go back to your junior days. I've watched you for a long time, played with you, lucky enough to do so. And I hold you in the highest regard in terms of finishes. So clearly it started at a young age, that ability, that clinical finish. And even when we've discussed this and broken it down, coaching sense, and we talk about going for instinct, and even your own instinct was to just make your mind up and go hard, whatever, which I could never do, and I always found impressive in you. But apart from the enjoyment that you got from that, and then obviously you start to realise that you're having an impact, starting to get selected for, in those days you would have been Western Region, would have been the first step, and then the next step up to the state squad. At what point were you starting to think, not only am I enjoying this, but I'm good at it, and there's something more here for me?
It's a good question. I think I was a really little very blonde boy, and I think I started to stand out in my own little patch of dirt, I guess, by scoring goals. Of course, there was plenty of good players around, and Andrew Marth was around at the time. The better one was definitely George Donikian as a junior. But for me, I actually missed out on the under 12 or under 13 state team, and we'll talk about this. I know that you and I, Cotsy, have talked about this a lot, about these sliding door moments. Alan Alexander, the state coach, he didn't select me, and he actually wrote me a letter talking about finishing, that I needed to take more responsibility in the box, and I've still got that letter today. And then somebody fell ill when they went to the national championships, and I was on standby, and I got called up, and the rest is really history, because I never missed another state team up until the under-18s. Opportunity. And also, and a lot of players that played with me would say that I took that letter of taking responsibility in a box really seriously.
So some would say took it seriously, and some would say just a greedy hog.
Never gave me the ball.
Well, ask Danny.
Well, you take the responsibility. You're the money man in the team. You got to score goals.
By the way, John Campbell says, making me smile from ear to ear listening to Coop's voice, memories from growing up at Altona City.
Well, that's an alias, that John Campbell, because that's the son of Nat. Who is not a bad little footballer himself.
Absolutely.
So talk us through, you got through playing state teams, but you're exceptional in that you were playing seniors at Altona by the age of 15. Now that's, again, very novel and clearly a mark of where you were at that stage. And you weren't a big lad, so it wasn't like a body thing, where you were physical and making a presence in that sense. Yeah. So knocking him away. And age 15, what do you remember about making your senior debut at age 15?
I actually made my debut in a last round game at 15. And I think we lost 3-0 that day to Springvale City. But the next year, I think it was 85, which was the year we went to China, I played a full season. I only missed the 5 or 6 games that we went to China. And my memory actually is that I played a right midfielder in the old 4-4-2. So I wasn't playing up front then, and I sort of was a winger for the state. But I was just carried along by just so many great people, Andrew Thompson was always there for me, and Ray Hands. You came a bit later, Cotsy, Rainer Reba, Dave Beattie. They were like protectors. And of course, Nat Little was still playing his trade, and I just looked up to Nat so much.
Right. As a footballer, you played with Nat, not many did, so not many got to see him at the peak of his powers. Do you remember how good he was, and what was it that you think stood him out from the rest?
He was just he was clever, he was subtle, he just knew he knew how to finish. He had nutmeg people. He was just class.
And was he a diver? Or could he milk a penalty? Just for the record.
The Divers Club refused to incriminate other people.
Okay, fair enough.
Gee. Speaking of incrimination, Danny did send me some intel, I mentioned.
Right.
He mentioned the time that you broke a leg.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us what was remarkable about that opportunity or that visit,
well,
when Danny and he and a mate of his visited you?
Yeah, so I broke my leg, I think I was about 19 years old, and it was a bad break. It was a tib-fib break at Altona City, and it was the people will tell you on the hill they could hear it snap like a piece of wood. I know, it's graphic, but it was a bad break, and I think it was Danny Ward and Gary Cutler come in to the Western General Hospital, and Gary Cutler was dressed up in a silk suit, looked $1 million, and Wardy had his overalls on and his measuring tape, and so initially I thought it was the Undertaker, and they're measuring me up the coffin. So it was pretty funny. But Danny got a great laugh out of it.
He did, and he's still laughing. He's loving it.
Yeah.
He's loving it.
I remember that day because I got subbed at half time, and in true form in those days, I cracked the shits and went home. So I missed you getting your leg broken. So I was kind of happy that I did, because I don't think I would have seen it.
Wish
Would have
I had got
enjoyed
subbed
seeing
at
it.
half time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, would it have been quite different? Talk about sliding doors.
Yeah.
Talked about Andrew Thompson.
Yep.
And Ray Hans. Give us more of an intel on why they had such an influence on you.
Yeah, and I know Cotty and we go back a long time, Cotty, and we had a little bit of a chat about this. It's an important part of my story, especially now I've been an educator for so many years, that sometimes you don't play for the Socceroos or play A-League or play professional football, but what you can actually get from the game, the nourishment you can get for the game, it's on a different level. It's only when you grow older and understand. And I'd never... for lack of a bit of a father figure in my life, even though I had a dad, there was times in my life I was on the borderline of going the wrong way with my upbringing.
Was that the herd you were running around with?
Yes, it was, and then it was, and I guess I did not grow up poor. I wouldn't say that, but I didn't have a lot of restrictions on me. I was out late. I was with the wrong people, and they were getting up to some terrible business. However, football always brought me back.
The discipline of the game.
Unbelievable. And then the family of it. And people like Tomo and DB and Ray Hans, Roy Hunter, Billy Hamill, they're only a little bit older, but they were the older men in my life.
So the uncles, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it's not too big a thing to say.
No.
That Altona City saved me. And that
a
might
very
sound...
perspective.
Yeah, it might sound a bit heavy.
No.
However, I've had a lot of reflection in recent years about where I've ended up, and I've been really lucky. But those football days, without those, I've had mates pass away for various reasons, go to jail, a lot of violence, drugs, crime, and I never really tipped over the edge into that world because of football.
That extra little bit of discipline.
Yeah.
I would have experienced some of that growing up in Sydney.
Yeah.
There were some fantastic people who not only took us to the game and brought us home and dropped us off because mum and dad didn't have the opportunity in those days to pick us up and do what mums and dads tend to do week in, week out, and support the youngsters. And we had Mrs. Peters, who would, she had an FJ Holden. There would have been about 18 kids, jammed either in the boot, the front, all illegal, but she used to take us to the football each and every week, and she'd make sure we'd all get home. She made sure we were fed. She made sure we didn't step out. And I'm thinking the very same thing in your situation, multiplied about 20, 30 times over.
Absolutely.
Well, there is an instance, right, when you're about 16, 17, where you tell us you're at the races and you again probably not mixing with the right people. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, there's only two of us there, but the person I was with, he's one of the ones who's no longer with us, and went the wrong side of the tracks. But as we're walking into the races, and this is a little bit of a little known story, and one I debated whether telling, being a teacher and all that sort of stuff, but it's part of my story, and it's important, and it probably puts into perspective the crossroads I was at. Anyway, we're walking into the races, and we saw Simon Beasley, who
The Simon Beasley.
The Simon Beasley.
Mr. Colourful.
He was a bookmaker at the time, and my mate and I saw him and said good day. Anyway, won't go through the details, but there was a bit of gang activity around the time, and I wasn't in a gang or anything like that. But a fracas happened with me and my mate, and I was stabbed.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and I was stabbed. It was in the leg and twice, and we were walking out, and I was bleeding from the leg, and it was Simon Beasley who stopped and made sure I was all right. And in fact, and little known story, put us in his BMW or whatever. I just remember it was a great car. And he drove me to the Western General Hospital, took me out of the car, and walked me up to the emergency department and said, could you look after this young fella? And you've got to remember, Simon Beasley was probably, apart from Dougie Hawkins, the biggest character
Yep.
in the game at the time.
Super character.
It's a pretty graphic story to tell.
But it also reflects really well on Beasley. doesn't
Oh,
it?
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, just...
That he had the wherewithal, but he also had the courage.
Oh.
And he knew responsibility was his.
Yeah, and he had nice car seats too. I know, it's a pretty traumatic story.
Had being the key word. So this is the key part now. This is when the old Taylor family really kicks in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And makes the difference in
Yeah.
pointing you or helping guide you
Yeah,
in the right direction.
Away from the damage.
that's right. These guys, and not for a second I'm saying all these guys are perfect, because they liked a good time, but it was done the right way. Really respectful people, and they metaphorically put an arm around me and said, you know, Coops, mate, cut it out, no more, you're coming with us. And
The penny drop.
well, the penny did drop, yeah. And not that I was the perfect person growing up. Still, we all had our fun, but it was a big moment in my life.
Yeah, so football put its arm around you, and then from that point, really, it started to make life generally a lot easier.
Yeah.
The pennies dropped. You're enjoying your football. You're in good company. That's the most important part. The family's taking you in as such, and now you get a chance to enjoy yourself and start looking ahead.
Yeah.
Schooling, university, preparing you for the future life. 25 years of teaching.
Yeah.
So clearly things did get mended.
Yeah.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Not
You
all.
went off and won a title at North Geelong.
Yeah, in '89, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, it was Savinsky's and Skoko, and that's where I met Danny, of course, and Rainer was already there.
Yeah.
Great times.
All right, Rainer.
Hang on, you got to 89. I want to know what happened 87. 87, you had a run-in with a guy called Lee Scheinflug.
Oh, yes.
Well, we can go before that, 85.
Well, 85 is the super glamour time when
Yeah.
you guys made the inaugural World Cup in China.
Yeah.
Come on, you knocked off a couple of newbie countries.
I
Was
reckon-
it Germany and Argentina? Did they play football? Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
Not as well as our
And
boys.
was there a Maradona in the Argentinian side?
Look, George, often I tell the kids at school I played against Maradona. And
Don't tell them it was Hugo.
That's right.
Why would you?
That's a great
And
story.
they go, did you? And I said, I'm telling you, I'm not lying. I played against Maradona at a World Cup. But
Which is his brother, of
a
course.
few things come out of that. I still remember it was Trimmers. I don't know if Trimmers remembers this, but we were in a hotel foyer, and all the Aussies are there, and we're like at the time a football backwater, or people see us that way.
Absolutely.
So we're in the
And
foyer.
you're the under-16.
Under 16. Craig Foster's there, who made the World 11 of that tournament, by the way. What a player. Anyway, the Argentinians come in juggling fruit on the head, the shoulders, the shins, singing "We're Not Going to Take It" by Twisted Sister. No, this is true, and intimidating. And
Okay.
Paul went up and he was speaking French, and he spoke to Hugo Maradona, and remembering at the time Maradona, Diego was the best player in the world. And Paul said to, I don't know if Paul remembers this, hopefully he does, but he said to Hugo, "Is your brother coming?" And Hugo said, "Only for the final." Next day,
Yeah. You played them, didn't
next
you?
day we played them, and I think we had crowds of 20 or 30,000 every time, because China was
So just ponder this for a moment.
Yep.
You're 16-year-olds,
Yep.
and you're playing in front of 20 and 30,000
yeah,
in
because
China in a World Cup.
because it was
the inaugural World Cup.
They didn't have a lot of events then, George, and it was still communist changeover
Yeah,
type
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So even when we went to training on the bus, we had people, trying to sort of touch our hands and hold hands out of the bus like we were actual
And of
rock
course,
stars.
they've never seen a blondie.
No.
Right? Or two.
But the next day we went out and we scored a goal, I think, of a set piece. And then my memory of it is we hung on for dear life for 70 minutes.
Park the bus.
And they were super, but we beat them 1-0. And
So
that
they
is
didn't
so
make
achievement.
they make the finals?
They actually, we beat Germany after that, which went on to make the final, and Argentina didn't make the quarters.
So the other Maradona didn't come?
No,
No.
he never got there.
No
Got
needs.
there.
Save the airfare.
Nah.
Okay, so you've had a fabulous tournament. Some of you guys made some real reputations for yourselves.
Yep.
Now, let's go to 87. Chile.
Well, this is probably the changeover period why I didn't make it like a Trimmers or a Craig Foster. And let's just say I've been in education for 25 years, so I've seen that many talented kids, and everybody at this table have seen superstar juniors not make it.
And we've heard the word potential used.
Of course, and you know,
Worst word in the world.
I can easily be thrown in the basket, but this is where I say you can get nourishment out of other things in football, because my whole life has revolved around it, and it's made everything possible for me. So, all right, I wasn't a professional, but there's other things that come out of it. But at that time in '87 was around the time I was on the wrong tracks. Right, so it would have been around those times I'm talking about. And look, to call a spade, I was out late, no restrictions, hanging around with the wrong people, doing the wrong thing. So I'm in a training camp for the Australian youth team to go to Chile, but I'm not a professional by any standard. And I actually think, I haven't got a bad word to say about Les, I actually think he sort of knew, because he'd be getting us up at 6 a.m, you know, that German discipline, and running us, and I'd be coming, you know, in the back three of this. But then again, come on, I was a striker. We don't have to run everywhere, do we?
No chasing back.
No chasing back.
Yeah.
But then he, on a training field, he'd put the fake wall up, and he called me over and he said, bend the ball around that wall. And the wall was put in such a place, I just couldn't do it. And I don't know if it was me or he put it into an impossible place, but every time I hit the wall, he would shout at me and scold me and just pressure me. And I think it was his way. He knew that I wasn't a professional, or being a professional. And I ended up, the last game before they picked the squad, we played New South Wales under-21s, and I scored 2 goals in the 3-1 win. So I was still knocking
on the door
goals away.
Yeah.
But I think he knew. He knew that you don't take a boy with habits like that, unprofessional habits, and you don't put them in a national team.
Because they seep into the rest of the side.
Well,
they might.
Well, you know, and probably at that time I wasn't good enough, because people are going past you. The people doing the right things are going past the people doing the wrong things.
Do you remember who got selected instead of you?
I think Alistair Edwards, who went on and had a
Pretty
long
good
career.
Yeah.
Of course. All right. It would have played a big part later on, and probably still does today, as you said, in when you become a coach. When you start thinking about being a coach, then you've got to be confronted with very similar situations at different times, maybe not as high stakes as going to World Cup and World Cup, but selection and criteria, and maybe looking at personalities against abilities.
Absolutely.
So it was starting to paint that picture for you, really, wasn't it, about what football is about? And you don't have to have success to learn. This kind of a failure, it's not a failure, but you know what I'm saying, not making the squad, which is what you would have set yourself for, was now starting to turn you into that adult that you were going to be at some point.
But, you know, Cotty, I don't even know, you say I was aiming for that. I think it was all passing me without having really much idea what was going on. That's the one thing, I don't think I had anyone telling me at home, let's say.
What was at stake and what you needed to do.
Yeah, and but it did start turning me into the coach I am today. I mean, I always tell the boys, just a very quick story before about opportunity knocking on the door. And it's one I've told the Essendon Grammar boys before a big final about opportunity and not to be frightened of it. I remember before the Argentina game, I was almost hoping, the nerves were so big, I was almost hoping not to get picked.
So intense.
Yeah, and I think again that might have seeped through to the coaches with whether it's my training or the way I was, and you know, it's smart
body language or whatever.
Smart people, of course. I mean, you look back now and they would be smart people, and I'd get it. Anyway, I didn't get selected for the starting 11 that game, and it was the one feeling I remember above all our others is a bit of relief. But then what happens, you know, when there's a bit of a crowd noise and then the whistle goes and they kick off and it all goes silent? At that moment, when they kicked off, about 10 seconds in, I realised I'd missed the biggest opportunity of my life, and I could have physically been sick. And that was opportunity, and I just wasn't ready to open the door.
Graham Kennedy used to say to us all the time, you should never be worried about nerves. What they're really telling you is that your body's on heightened alert and you're ready to perform.
Yeah.
You know, if you've done the work, everything else will thrive and happen for you.
Yeah.
And I've always said to people, don't be intimidated by it. If you're feeling this enormous discomfort inside, embrace it, don't fight it. But it's easier said than done.
No, and that's right. And I'm coaching at UM at the moment at times and working in the academy there. And a couple of weeks ago, I was helping out a group of boys who were basically playing for the NPL title on pitch 1 under lights at UM. It was a massive game against Vaughan's Sunshine George Cross.
Vaughan Covenants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and you know, I've got a lot of respect for Vaughan. He just builds,
terrific player. He was a great player for us.
Yeah, and he builds super teams. They play the best football, you know, and he's just a very, very good coach. And we're playing them. And the message to the boys for me was, when your parents drive you down to the soccer club when you're 7 years old, this is the sort of moment you want to be in. So embrace it. This is beautiful.
This is payback.
Pitch 1, ABD Stadium, under lights for an NPL title, just about. So embrace it. It's the very reason that you started in the first place. But again, George, I'll go back to that. I'm just being reflective of my life. I wasn't getting those messages. So maybe I was a little bit underprepared for these moments at the time.
Yeah. All right, so it didn't work out. And then, like I said, you went to North Geelong, got there, won the league.
Yep.
Met with Wardy, and was that the first time you played with Rayner? Or had you played with him at Altona City before?
Yeah, Altona City, yeah.
Okay, cool. We need to go to a break and take care of the sponsors, but when we get back, I want to talk to you about Rayner and the special part he plays in your life.
Yeah.
This is the Pioneers with Colin Cooper.
Welcome back to the Pioneers on a Thursday night. G1 back from suspension, and our special guest Colin Cooper, who's got us riveted here with these stories. He has.
And you know what? One of the very few occasions I can actually turn to Coops and say, "Tell me about G2. What was he like?
Oh,
you guys played against one another. You coached against one another.
This is a
Was he any good?
Was he good? He was much more skillful.
Was he singing?
No, he was very good, and I will say, and some people considered me skillful. Kotzi was well and truly above me for skill. He was an extremely skillful player. He was a little bit of a hothead.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
half time you send him off, gone.
But everyone who
straight
played,
home.
but George, everyone who played with Kotzi would remember the same sort of thing, that he would go down the line, he'd beat his fullback. Fantastic, well done, George. He'd beat him again. You've made 2 runs. He'd beat him again, and just when
Square the ball.
just when you thought he was going to clip it in, he'd beat him again. And I'm not lying. Any forward who played with George would tell you that. But I considered myself a reasonably intelligent player, so I didn't make a run until his fourth time he beat someone.
And that's why you scored a lot of goals, Coops, because you're smart enough to work out that it wasn't going to come over till the 4th time.
That's right.
Now, forget about me and let's get back on to you now. I really want to talk about your relationship and your friendship with our good friend Rainer Reba.
Yeah, well, for those who don't know, Rainer was a great goalkeeper in football, and he was a Werribee boy, went to Altona City, but we played together at North Geelong.
And a record games holder for Footscray in district cricket as a wicket-keeper.
You know I was going to get onto that, because I'm like a fan of Rainer still.
We all
because,
are.
you know, Rainer was, as you say, a record games holder for Footscray district cricket, which is one under Sheffield Shield. He kept a Merv Hughes, Tony Dodderbane, Ray Bright, Colin Miller.
Fantastic.
He kept to a test attack and was an extremely good wicket keeper, and just held out of the Victorian team really by Darren Berry. As a soccer goalkeeper, football goalkeeper, he was awesome as well, as you know. If Rainer called for a cross, even though he's probably not quite 6 foot,
You got out of the way.
you got out of the way because you knew he was going to catch it, and then he would deliver it on a 10-cent piece on the halfway line with hand or foot. He was just a superb player, highly skilled. And we've had this really long journey together, Altona, North Geelong, Moreland City, where he contributed so much. And he's been helping me with the first soccer for the last 10 years. And only recently, and this is a bit of a plug for Rainer, he's been doing the first cricket at Penley and Essendon Grammar. And I was sort of his 2IC team manager last year, and he steered the ship to the first outright premiership in its history.
Yeah, fantastic.
So he's just a terrific bloke.
You've given me the stats. That's not what I asked you, mate. I asked you about your relationship and your friendship. That's what I want to know about Rainer Ridler.
Well, what do you want me to tell you?
Oh,
He trusts him. He backs him. He's there for him.
We spend a lot of time together. He's just a laid back, special person. And you know the thing about Rainer, I think this is the key for him. It says a lot about him that he sees the best in me when I coach at Pegs. He sees the best version of me, which means I can be the best version of myself. And he's super supportive. And I whenever I maybe give a bake to the players or whatever I do, he always seems to say, "Yeah, you got that one right, Coops." He's probably thinking, "Geez, you got that wrong," but he's just very clever.
Rainer right now in the Middle East, not Middle East, in playing against the Pakistanis.
He's a cool cat.
We need someone over there to talk to our batsmen, to do something they haven't done for the last few years.
Yep.
Play with a straight bat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rainer wasn't renowned for his batting.
No, but he's a wicketkeeper. It's all about angles.
You got to let me
tactics.
finish. He'll kill me if he listens to this. But he was pretty good. He stuck in there. He opened the batting for a while in district cricket, which I wouldn't want to even stand out there.
no, that's fair enough.
Did he do it with a helmet or without a helmet?
He's smart enough to wear a helmet.
Good question. I'd say.
No, if he's old enough, he wouldn't have played with a helmet.
One of those SS helmets that Tony Gregg
Oh,
brought out.
yeah.
He's not. I don't think he's that old. He's
No.
close though.
All right, before we run out of time, because we always do on this program, I want to make sure that we do as much justice as we can to your whole career. Now, Altona City, 1990, you came back from winning a league down North Geelong.
Yep.
Danny didn't come back with you till the year after, I think, Wardy. But Rainer came, and I joined Altona City.
Yep.
And we won the league that year,
Yep.
3rd Division. But on the last day, we thought we'd only finish second.
That's
So we were
right.
celebrating promotion.
Yeah.
And for those old enough to remember, in those days, there was no mobile phones, there was no internet, there certainly wasn't any live scores, and you got your scores at 6 p.m. on a Saturday or Sunday night
Yep.
on the old 3EA with Jose Montez and whoever else happened to be, whatever. Now, we were celebrating promotion and we were pretty happy.
Yeah. We were up.
Take it from there.
Well, I won't go into too much detail, but we were such a great bunch of mates, and we'd been promoted, which was a big deal, but we had no chance of winning the league, well, according to us, because Bentley Greens were clearly on top. Well, on top, but they were playing Clorinda, 2 Greek clubs playing each other, top versus bottom.
That should have given you an insight.
That's right, but it was, I think, from memory, Bentley were safe. Clorinda were already down, so we're just thinking, there's no way there's going to be an upset. No way.
and we won 5-1, I think. On the
We won 5-1 on the day. I still remember we had a bit of pre-match entertainment for ourselves where they were throwing prawns onto the ground and we were eating prawns while we were playing. We still won 5-1.
I'm glad you didn't mention the stripper.
No,
Oh,
I said
don't.
pre-match entertainment, George.
Yes, keep moving. Keep moving, GT.
She was pre-match entertainment.
Thank you. Keep moving.
I didn't say that.
No, that's very good.
And,
See, this is the educationalist.
Yeah, whatever.
So what happened at the end of that game? We were having a drink in the bar, and somebody went out to the car just to check the scores. Tomo, was it?
Yeah.
And the rooms were full because it was the last game of the year, and we're celebrating promotion. Yeah. And Tomo come in, and he gave us the news that Clorinda had knocked Bentley over 1-0.
Get out.
Now that, if I could talk about moments that I clearly remember,
That was it.
the eruption in the room, because they're just all a great bunch of people. The eruption in the room, I reckon within 30 seconds I was standing in 3 inches of beer. It was everywhere. It was just flying. It was just mayhem, and it was so unexpected. And it was just funny in those days. We sang "We Are the Champions" probably 100 times. All our wives and girlfriends were sick of us. We were having barbecues. I said, "You've already celebrated. It's 3 weeks later. We're still celebrating."
We had a big month.
So
Yeah,
you
we
not
did.
only went up, but you won the title.
Yeah, that was right.
Yeah, no, that
Freaky
was
good.
that was
Freaky
great.
good.
Now we're going to jump a bit. You went on your merry way. You went off to Moreland at some point.
Yeah.
I tried to get to Moreland, but Nat asked for too much money, and the transfer fee was horrendous for.
I did go to
part-time player.
Richmond first.
Oh, that's right. You
for a
went to
year.
Richmond.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you ended up at Moreland in the old Probby one, as Moreland were just starting to take her eyes under Perky, good old Perky. Wardy met with you, and you had a gun side for that provisional one side was not a
Was
provisional.
Bizzetto there at the time?
No,
No.
he came a bit later, and
A bit
yeah,
later.
Okay.
he's.
So you guys led the way.
Well, yeah, and as you know, Morris has been unbelievably influential, and we'll probably talk about that.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
Um,
You won the league
yeah,
by a long way. It was a great side. Pricey, Hurdy.
95, we won the league by 15 points because they were all sort of either ex-pros or just very, very good players.
And Wardy was in the side.
Danny, well, if I could just quickly say, when I went to Richmond,
Yep.
Michael Lynn, Mickey Lynn, got me over, and he
He
was.
will be on here next week.
Yeah, and he was a terrific coach and a great bloke, and he got me over there, and I wonder if he'll remember this, but he got me over there. This was after I broke my leg, and I didn't have the greatest season the year before. But the first night training, I can't remember ever having a better training session. Mickey used to have like probably a 7 on 7, 8 on 8, and I don't know. I must have scored 8 goals. This is before we signed, which was a good timing, right? And and Mickey must have thought, what have I got here? You know, this is what a signing. And it was, you know, and look, to be honest, I never signed for big money. Not that I remember it, I really didn't. And maybe when you know how valuable goal scorers are, I reckon in hindsight I could have got more. But I didn't have a great season. It just didn't really happen for me there. And I'm a little bit disappointed about that because I would have liked to have had a better season. It was all right, but I didn't score enough goals. But I played with Chalky Adams and Jimmy McLean, who were just standouts. So
And Yogi.
So Yogi McInerney was at Moreland. So we went to Moreland, and with Stewie Monahan, the first night's training, I think I told you this, George, for the documentary.
The documentary, yeah.
The first night training, so I've just come from Richmond in State 1 in those times, just 1 under the Premier League, and very professionally run club. There were 7 blokes running around in the dark, I reckon, and one of them was Macca and one of them was Stewie. And I really thought, what have we got here? But Danny Ward made the move. Stevie Roebuck was there. And slowly, we built a bit under David Perkins. And a little bit of mojo started coming back. And I reckon, as you know, I've been pretty fortunate at Moreland. But one of the reasons I'm valued by some of the older guys there, like Bobby Murdoch and Albie McCormack, is that was a crossroad moment. That club was on its knees. And by bringing in good personalities, and Danny Ward was massive in this, it started to turn. The ship started to turn. We got some good blokes in, some good players in, and slowly but surely we turned, and we won the league by 15 points in 95.
And Coops, today, Moreland City are making a real play. Their ground, Campbell Reserve, is never looked better. The cricket pitch is gone, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Which would probably break your heart because you probably played some of your best work on the cricket pitch.
We did some damage with that.
Well, everyone hated the cricket pitch, but I used to play on the cricket pitch both halves, which was on one wing because I felt
strategic.
Well, I felt that it was hard for
The
defenders to keep their feet.
Correct.
Because it's got that cricket soil, and I honestly believe that because I felt like I was sort of low to the ground, centre of gravity, reasonably balanced. And it was a really slippery surface, so I used to play both halves.
Hell.
And they didn't know about the dip at either end as they
That's
were
right.
running.
That's
So
right.
many a defender went flying.
On Moreland's current standing and what it's doing, I mean,
It's sensational.
you can't
story.
say enough about the people at the club, and obviously Morris. You've got to say that Morris has made such a big difference with his connections
Yep.
and
The business connections.
absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a smart man, and he cares about the club, and they're they were minutes away from
Whisker away.
going up, and that was heartbreaking.
How can you be? What was it? 2-1 up.
3-0 up.
2-0
up.
In the 89th
And they
minute.
lost 3-2. Is that right?
We haven't got time to go into that one because that one could be a private show.
Yeah.
Now, you then were coaxed, perhaps, or you started to feel like you're ready to coach. You were young, 27, 28.
27.
Right, so take on player coaching. It's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
Did you want to do it, or do you reckon you were coaxed, or where was that?
No, my recollection is I wanted to do it because by that time I'd sat next to Kenny Fletcher at Essendon Grammar
Yep.
for 4 or 5 years, and I was watching a master at work in his own way, and I still to this day think my reasonable success in coaching is because I take a lot of footy philosophy about togetherness
From Fletch.
from Fletch and the way he, coached football. Amazing. I mean, Fletch coached 25 years for 10 premierships. He's an icon of schoolboy football. Never mind the fact that he played 264 games and captained Essendon. He's an incredible man, and he was an amazing father figure to me, to be honest.
He's had a big influence on you becoming a coach.
Yep.
Now,
And that's the thing that keeps resonating in this story of yours,
Yep.
that you've had some terrific characters who've been in your life and it been in your football clubs,
Yeah.
and they've made a difference.
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, I remember when we got together at Moreland, this is the part that, the important part for me is that we both agreed I'd come on board and coach the Rizzies and play a little bit, and you were going to do it, and Morris got involved, right? And we had a meeting, I reckon, in December
Yep.
at Morris's house, maybe Fitzroy or Northcote or something. And
Yep.
we started planning then for the season, and that's when I realised the meticulous planning
Preparation.
required and preparation required. It wasn't just a case of turning up and seeing. We started putting blocks into place as early as
Yep.
December, and that paid
Dividends.
huge dividends, right?
Yep.
Both teams won the league.
Yep.
Moreland were on the rise. It was great. We got promoted again the following year.
Yeah.
Sensational. Again, you played a huge role in that. Morris played his part, and so did the club, the Albies and the Jimmy Greens and these guys, because we were all united, we were all on the same page. That was a given.
Absolutely.
About Moreland. That was the uniqueness,
The greatest of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it remains that way too.
Hasn't changed. It holds its character.
Yeah.
And most
we
clubs,
talk about culture, don't we?
Yeah.
Coops,
Absolutely.
we talk about culture.
But
Yeah.
Coops
It's been wrapped in it for ages.
Coops was huge in instilling the next bit, which was, as per the documentary, what is a Moreland City player,
Correct.
etc., etc.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to run out of time, but you were named in the team of the century, right?
Yeah.
Not many clubs actually have a century, let alone a team of the century. They might have the best 50 years or 40 or 60. Tell us from the heart what that meant to you.
Look, I'm acutely aware of Moreland's history, particularly around the 50s, and
It was a power club.
I
we know that.
don't.
Right side.
I'm so honoured to be part of that, but I also understand there was a lot of good players, and I'm lucky that I'm part of the modern era, and maybe I had an influence and it helped me get in. I'm not saying I'm a bad player. I'm certainly not saying that for a second, but I am saying I feel very fortunate I got in, and I think some people would think that too. However, it was just part of the fabric of the club. I do believe I had a big influence in those times, when we're especially culturally, and I think maybe I was rewarded for that, as well as scoring a few goals as well.
And a few best and fairest in the league.
Yeah.
You earned your part. Don't worry about that. There's no thing.
And have you stopped talking about the victory over Marcellin and Marco
Marcellin.
Marciano's Marcellin?
Yeah, no, well, so obviously Essendon Grammar, Penley and Essendon Grammar is a massive part of my life. They talk about moments, to get in there and be around great people and see how it's done at the top level. And I've morphed into that person myself. But yeah, 96 we beat, one of my early ones, we beat, Marco Bresciano scored 3 goals in a 3-0 win against us at Pegs in the home and away. And
So you owed him something.
we owed him something. We played him in the grand final, and there's a young man, Jason Evangelides, that I got to tag him. And Jason's never played another game of football since, I don't think. But he tagged him that closely. It's a wonder he wasn't on a plane to the World Cup with him.
Oh, fantastic.
And we beat him 2-1. But Jason can dine out on that story
A lifetime.
forever.
And so we should.
Well, we've been enjoying you dining out on some great stories, but there have been some great characters. You touched on some of them. You touched on Wardy. You touched on that man Foster. You call him the sort of guy that you have in a what was it? How did you describe it? PlayStation character.
Yeah, because when he was younger, he played for Northern New South Wales, and he was just an athletic beast. But stood up straight, posture fantastic.
He does it on camera.
Shoulders square. But he was some player. But like I say, at that World Cup, he made the World's 11. But he went on to have a very, very good career. And I still follow Craig with great interest, because I find him a really interesting character and a deep thinker. And I'm always very supportive of Craig.
Fantastic.
Is there anyone else you want to thank? or mention before that? I know that there's many influences, but I don't want you to go here and then regret it.
One of the things I wanted to probably write at the end is you know, there's been a bit of a theme about the absence of a father figure. My dad was still a very good man, but it just didn't really know how to probably get that across. But then I've got to thank my mum, because she's been an amazing person in my life, and so strong. And then, you know, as you know, Marnie, Brady, Tyler, Jake, I'm very fortunate to have a very strong family now, and all the people at Pegs in particular, they've really made my life what it is today.
Well, is it 25 years?
It's 25 years, yep.
Okay, we wish you another 25 more, because we reckon you've got that many more stories and that many more examples to set for the next generations of footballers to come.
Yeah. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I know I took a bit of convincing. I've seen it close up, this story, we've probably spent half that time together in many different clubs and guises as coaches and parents and a whole lot, and it's been an incredible journey. I've enjoyed sharing it with you, and I can look forward to continuing sharing football with you. It's been a treat, and it will continue to be a treat. You've been a credit to your family and to the sport. Well done, and you're still servicing that sport that you love and you fall in love with, that we talk about all the time. Don't stop doing it, mate. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Cotty, and thank you, George.
Pleasure. Great stuff. Well done, boys. Super. Woody will be happy.
FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Buzianis, no call! Score!
Salamidi for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Bath blasts. Yes! Edge!
Vujovic.
Beautiful goal! Here's Bozanic. They haven't! They might have won it!
The Pioneers with George Donikian and George Kotzanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.